Thank you.
Thank you.
Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Right. I yield to the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Burton.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Congressman Issa for the letter that he gave to me. You know, we had Mr. Paulson and Mr. Bernanke before the committee just in the last couple of weeks, and they had an epidemic of memory loss on a number of issues. And Mr. Paulson was working, of course, very closely with Mr. Geithner, the now Secretary of Treasury, on a number of issues, as well as Mr. Bernanke. And you know, this whole pattern really kind of bothers me about how they've appeared to keep things from the Congress of the United States because they can't remember who did what on the Merrill Lynch deal with Bank of America, and now Geithner's worked with Paulson, and now they're in effect threatening you. I mean, I don't see how anybody can get anything out of this letter that we received other than they were putting the hammer to you to back off. You say here that on April 15th, Mr. Knight wrote to the OLC over at the Justice Department attaching a copy of SIGTARP's April 7th memorandum regarding the presented issues. And they were asking whether or not you should fall under the jurisdiction or control of the Treasury Department. It's pretty clear to, I think, everybody on this committee that you should be independent because that's what your job is. But then there was some kind of correspondence between you and the Department of Justice, and they asked you to redact a portion of the email exchanged from OLC. That was to you, right?
Initially, I think all of the information that our correspondence that we, oh yes, I'm sorry, yes, the response from OLC to us, which then generated an additional response from Treasury, yes, that was, we were asked to redact that.
Why, I wonder why they asked you to redact that. Did they give you a reason?
The stated reason from OLC is that it was, the information was indicative of their current thinking on an uncompleted matter, therefore that it was privileged information, and that until they came to a final resolution, they didn't want...
Well, you know, I was chairman of this committee for 6 years, and I worked with the Justice Department on a number of occasions, a lot of occasions, as a matter of fact, and they didn't give any information out or send any correspondence whatsoever that would have to be redacted. And the reason they didn't is because until they made a final determination, they didn't want any information out there in the hinterlands. And so when they sent you this information, and then they tell you that, that it has to be redacted, it seems to me that that's once again working with the Treasury Department to kind of to keep the hammer on you and hold things in abeyance so that you'll walk the chalk. You have any comment on that?
I really can't.
I didn't think you could.
Unfortunately, but
you know, I think this is such a blatant attempt to intimidate you, and I am so happy that you contacted Chairman or Ranking Member Issa and Senator Grassley, because what it's done is it's illuminated this issue so that these people that are trying to slow you down and not let this information get out in the public domain, they're going to be threatened by this right now. The only thing I would admonish you to do is to watch your back, because you, as I understand it, are subject to the President, and the President, you serve at his pleasure. And so I think, you know, there could be some reason they could come up with down the road that would get you replaced. But in the meantime, I want to congratulate you for having the intestinal fortitude, and I'd use some other terminology if I wasn't in public, to stand up for what you believe in. I think it's really great, and I'm glad you sent this letter to Mr. Issa. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I can assure you and I can assure this committee that I will not spend a single moment worrying about my job security or my future. I'm just going to continue to do the job that I've been hired to do, which is bring the complete transparency as possible and continue to audit and investigate to the best of my ability.
I have not met you before, but I like you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah.
I've had a tough couple of days, so I appreciate that.
I'll be happy to.
One follow-up question. You know, so much has been said of this 23.7 trillion, plus or minus a trillion here or there, but because constitutionally we must authorize and appropriate monies, wouldn't it be fair to say that we need to have the transparency so we can anticipate in each fiscal year the likely outlays of additional money where risk is beginning to become recognized? Wouldn't that be something that this committee has to be able to access if we're going to allow the appropriators to make those funds available, presumably because additional losses may still occur in a number of markets, including the housing market?
I have to confess that I don't have an intimate knowledge of the emergency authorities that were invoked by the Federal Reserve and to a certain extent by the FDIC in authorizing these maximum amount, and what Congress's role is for authorizing them. So I'm not really sure what the constitutional
assuming that we
structure is.
believe that, currently, in your opinion, are we getting that information, assuming that we believe we should appropriate monies in the years in which the loss occurs?
Well, I think from a looking back perspective, we've done our best to bring that information to your attention to the best that we can based on publicly available information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me just say before I yield to the next gentleman from Missouri,